opening song clip, I used some Quad Cortex and some Ampero. Can you tell which one was which? Hey gang, I was originally gonna do this video as the Ampero Stage 2 versus an unknown $2,000 model, or well, it wouldn't have been unknown, but it was secret. But as I started making the video, I thought, like, I'm just gonna tell you, you know, it's gonna be the Quad Cortex versus the Stage 2. And the reason I became comfortable for saying that is because I feel like my heart's in the right place. I'm not at all dumping on either of these products. Really, I'm not gonna bury the lead. Here is my opinion. These are both great. I mean, the end. If you have a Quad Cortex, you did not make a bad decision. It's a great product. Worth every penny. Sure. If you have a Ampero Stage 2, you did not make a bad decision. You shouldn't feel like you have to upgrade because it may not be an upgrade for you. I'll try to unveil my biases right now. This was given to me from Hotone. I purchased this with my own dollars. I was going to buy the original, several months ago, I was going to buy the Stomp 2 because it is a full-featured multi-effect, and I was looking for something that could just do everything on a pedal board with a touch screen and with some updated newer features than some of the other usual suspects. And I reached out to them and asked if they would send me, and I'll do a video and I'll show what I'm doing with it. So thank you for watching that, because I was very successful, which I think, but the thing was, I was just gonna buy the Stomp anyway because it's really inexpensive. And then, so why did I get the Quad Cortex? One is because the capturing on the Quad Cortex is fast and it sounds good. I actually didn't care that this had any modeling in it for amps. It was important to me that it has effects, but if it was just capturing and the effects, I was totally good. Now the Stomp 2 has no capturing. So the important thing for me was that there's so many ins and outs on this. I could go out of the effects loop on an amp, and I could also run into the front end with a noise gate and a tuner, and this has a looper and all this stuff. It's really pretty complete. I didn't really need another capture device either. So this is doing exactly what I wanted it to do. So now this is where I compare. Effects-wise, I think they're pretty similar, to be honest. So keep in mind, this is not even half of the price of the Quad Cortex. I'll look, here's the current prices. Just like every device I've tried, whether it's a Line 6 device, Hotone, Neural, Eventide, whatever, there are hit and misses in the effects. Some of them sound amazing, and I'm just looking for, like, can you get like 90% of the effects really good? Some you go, well, it's close enough. So can I say one of these is better at effects? No, I'd say, if anything, you have a much wider array of effects here. Like, for instance, if you're looking for a delay, it's kind of like, I mean, look, there are analog, tape delay and stuff, but you get, here's your digital delay. This has, like, here's your 2290, here's a vintage rack delay, here's some other multi-taps and stuff like that. They're both super easy to use. This will give you more effect options. That's how I see it. Now for amp models, I don't know if the number of models really matters to me, because if you have 1,000 models that stink, who cares, right? I'm gonna say on the number of models, that's even Steven, you know, who both have all of the things you could possibly want. If you're so specific, you probably will need to do a capture of something. But most of the classic and great sounding amps, whether it's modern or vintage, you're gonna find in either of these. Now here is the big kicker, and this is the big thing. Which of the amp models sound better? Because that's kind of everything, right? If you're buying a modeler, well, does this modeler sound better? Is this twice as good? I had no idea. None. It's one of those things that's hard to tell until you do a really scientific-ish direct comparison. So that's what I did. So now I will break down, I'll do that track again. I recorded the guitar parts DI, and then I took every couple bars and just repeated the phrase. So it's the exact same performance repeating, and then I reamped the Quad Cortex and I reamped the Ampero. I level matched them as well. I thought that's the best way to figure out does one of these sound better. To try and equalize this to get to the amp models, I used my own IR. It's this IR from my IR collection. I typically use one of two IRs ever, and this is my favorite one, which I always start with. I have this for sale on my website, and I recommend it. It works great for everything. I figured like you got to start with a plexi. You got to be able to do a good plexi. So I went into one and I dialed it up. I went into the other and I dialed it up, not A-Bing, just to see like this is the sound I'm looking for. And then I did A-B and level matched, and what I found was just, well, let's save that conversation for after you listen to the clips. Okay, so I decided to try it with one other amp, and I just did some chords. I took the newest model in the Ampero, which is the Soldano SLO 100. It's the HQ model, so that's their updated, their highest quality model versus the same amp model in here. This time I used some effects. I used some delay and reverb also built in for each one. I tried to kind of match what it was doing, like a tape delay with some modulation and a plate. I'll show you those settings, of course, and tell me what you think. Okay, so now you've heard everything. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I'm very curious to hear if you heard what I heard. What I heard was no change in quality, like, ooh, this one is better. I heard, and I checked this with some other models, typically the Quad Cortex is brighter than the Ampero. So because this is brighter, sometimes it sounded more scooped. Other times it sounded like it was more present and cut through the mix. Whereas this sounded fuller, and then other times it sounded a little darker and as if it didn't cut through the mix as much. And you could see on the amp settings, to get to sounds that where I felt were balanced, this was almost maxing out the amp controls at the treble and presence, whereas this was down about halfway. There's no way I would go to 10 on the treble on these. It would just be like ear piercing. You know, that's one of those things you just don't know what they modeled. Maybe they modeled an amp with old tubes and it's warm, or maybe this was newer tubes and it was super bright, or, you know. So my conclusion is basically, if I'm using this, I just don't have to second guess that I'm using an inferior modeler because of its price point. And like I said, if I was just using the internal models, I wouldn't feel pressed to go into the Quad Cortex. If you are doing captures, that's a whole different ball of wax, because now you're talking about this versus Kempers and Tone X's and a whole slew of other things. So in a sense, it's like whatever fits your bill. Look, these are the same size, but if you had space for something bigger and needed a bunch of pedals, that's gonna guide you in one direction. If you need something smaller, this thing is bonkers for the size. And look at the size difference. I mean, you cut down to just the essentials. There's a ton of effect slots and stuff, so you could just roll up with this. So, I mean, options, right? How great is it to have an option for everything? So, yeah, just go make some music, right? You could use this, you could use this, you could use that. Go make some music. All right, gang. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.